Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. So next up, it is time for that bed build. I have a couple of rough SketchUp drawings. I'll throw one up here just so you can see what I'm using to keep me on track because I haven't produced the plans yet, and I'm hoping that they're going to be coming. So I started off with 3 templates. The legs on this will be 5 inches by 5 inches, and of course the bed rails sit on there. And you need 77 inches for a king size mattress. So this will be a king size bed. So I've set all my templates, or these 2 templates at least, up. It's 72 inches wide, which essentially centers those bed rails on the finished legs. But I created these 3 templates. The upper template for the upper rail of the headboard and the footboard. And these are the lower rails for the headboard and the footboard, and they're all 7 inches wide. It's all in African mahogany. And then this little guy is essentially the tallest piece that I have for the headboard, footboard, well, the headboard panels. The footboards will all be shorter, but if I can get this much material from my stock, I'm sure that I'll have enough for the footboard. So I'm going to move the camera over and kind of show you how I laid out the material and what I've got, and I'm still a couple of boards short. I don't have enough material on hand currently to get the rails out of the bed rails, but that's okay. I want to get the headboard and the footboard pretty much done first, and then I'll go to work on the rails and getting this bed put together. So let me switch the camera over. I'll show you what's going on there. And and one more note, I want to try to keep this to 1 or 2 videos. For whatever reason, beds don't do that great on YouTube, so, and that's okay, but I have to get this bed built, and I'm going to video it and take you along for the ride. So let's move over. Okay, so I kind of hope most of my marks show up. The first marks you'll see is all these blue O's down here, or zeros, or whatever. African mahogany looks different from different ends of the board. So I've got them all lined up so the grains all look the same going this way. The next thing I did was try to find material with a good arch in it that would fit the arch on the bed itself for the headboard and the footboard. And these 2 boards right here, and I've kind of marked a center line. It's a little bit wasteful, but when I set those on there and kind of line up those center lines, that arch follows that pattern really nicely. Now I have to be careful because there's a big split in the board right down here. So I don't have a lot of wiggle room in this one. This one fits pretty nicely though. So I think we'll be just fine. This 3rd board in I have marked as a leg. It's probably wide enough for a rail. But all the legs being 5 inches and I couldn't get material that thick, we'll take 3 pieces for each one of the legs laminated, and then we're going to veneer the glue sides, and I'll show you that when we get there. This board I have marked for the footboard lower end rail, so that, again, using my pattern and leaving it oversized, and it probably leaves me enough for a footboard style down there. The next board over is the headboard lower rail. This had a couple of marks and stuff in it, which I'm fine with, but you're never going to see that board, so that's where that went. And again, I got another headboard style out of that. And the second to last board, those are all headboard styles, so I'll get 3 of them out of there. And the very last board there, those are all footboard styles. So this should be all the rails and styles for the headboard and the footboard. I have this board for legs. I have 2 more boards over there that I have marked as leg material. And then I have some leftover stock from doing the desk as well. So between all of that, I should have enough to do the legs. So I'm going to break all this stuff down off camera, get it into manageable chunks, get it flat and square, all the good stuff, and then I will show you what's going on. So with all the parts pretty much rough milled, I've got them flat on one side. All of the style material are cut to about 1/4 of an inch oversize. Same with the lower headboard rails. The upper headboard rails, I did not join or cut the sides because I'm so close on material. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the curves first, and then I'm going to take all this material to thickness at the same time, since it all has to work together. At least, you know, the headboard has to work with the headboard stuff, and the footboard, you get the picture. So anyways, curves are next, and then I will go mill this to thickness over at the planer. And what my final thickness is, I don't know. It's as thick as I can get it with the material that I have. I was pretty impressed with how flat this stuff was to start with, so I think I'll be able to maintain the bulk of my thickness. So the last thing to do is just put a little bit of epoxy on this faux edge, and then we can sand the rail up and get ready for the joinery. All right, so hopefully that light glare isn't too bad. I'm going to do exactly the same thing to the footboard top rail, and then we'll get after some joinery. Okay, so next up is to cut this groove for all the panel and the headboard, and I'll do it on the footboard as well. I'm just using a 1/2 inch slot cutter bit, and I have it centered, and I'm going to do it in a couple of passes, so I'm not trying to hog all that out at one time with this bit. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do while I'm making a mess is I'm going to go ahead and just put a little 1/8 inch round over on this to soften this edge. All right, so as you can see, I've got all my stock milled up for the legs. I have them labeled on the end as to what goes where. The last thing I'm going to do today is just get all this leg stock glued up and let it cure for the night. So apologies for the strange camera angle in my shop. It's a little bit unusual. I moved my bench out. I clamped the head rail to the back of my bench, and I have a straight edge set on each side to make sure that everything stays square. And I want to start fitting these stiles so that they fit in here really nice. Now I used the template and I marked where each one goes, And I use that same template to give me a rough pattern for the tops of each one of these styles. From there, I'm going to take it to the bandsaw and cut that angle. And then I'm going to go back and forth to that sander to here until it fits just perfectly. And then I'm going to go back to the other bench using the same setup in the router because it's still set up for cutting this groove. And I'm going to cut a groove in this end, and then we're going to use a loose tenon to put the whole thing together. I'm not going to glue, I'll glue the loose tenon in the style, but I'm not going to glue the whole thing together for a couple reasons. One, I don't have the panels made yet. Two, I also don't have the rabbets or the dados cut in the sides of these rails for those panels yet, and I haven't determined what my overall length is yet. So these are all long, but I'll show you when I have one glued up at the bench, so I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So there's one glued in place. I'll come back and sand these flush after the glue cures. And for the record, that's not a crack, that's actually the grain in the wood. But I'll be using these as set up in the table saw when I put the dado stack in to give all these mortises for the inside panels. So I also need to groove both sides of these styles for the panels themselves. I have the tenons glued in, so all's good there. I have a 1/2 inch dado stack set up, and I'm going to keep the face oriented to the fence. And I'm just going to cut grooves in each side of these styles as we go. And then eventually I'll leave this set up here because we're going to have to do that lower headboard rail as well. So apologies, I kind of got wrapped up when I was doing and forgot to turn the camera on. Once I got all of these in and I marked my line on the bottom, I cut these at the chop saw, and then I used the same router setup to groove the bottom and installed another floating mortise or another floating tenon in here. And while the table saw is all set up, I grooved the bottom rail so it slides on. So now all I have to do is build these wingy panels to fit in, and they're a 14 inch, and it'll be a 16 inch in the middle, plus the groove. So you can add an inch or a little less to account for movement in each one. I'll do that tomorrow, but I just wanted to catch you up to where I was at. And I still have the footboard to do as well, so it'll probably be a day or two before I get back to those wingy panels, but we'll see how far I get. Okay, so off camera, I milled up some wingy to 1/2 inch thick and a little oversized, what I needed. And now I'm going to fit each one in here and get that curve marked. I'm going to cut that curve out at the bandsaw. I'm going to fit it back in, get my final measurement at the bottom, and cut the bottom off. And when all 3 panels are fitted, I'm going to go ahead and glue this one up. All right, guys, so there's the footboard all glued up. I still got sanding and all kinds of stuff to do on this, and I also have to get the headboard into the same place. That's going to wrap it up for this video. We're getting awful long in the tooth here, so I'm going to sand this stuff up and finish up the headboard just like I did here on the footboard, and then we get going again. We'll put the rails on, put the slats in, and put some finish on this bad boy. So until next time, guys, take care.